Oh, joy, screamed the crowd as the bells came down and the world ends slow with the to and fro. To throw like throw, not fro, because I'm bad at English. Evident. Camera's moved, not sure if I like that yet. Sup kids, how are you doing today? Is this in the right place? That was an interesting noise. This could be the right place, right? Just a little right here, right in front of my face. Some of you won't even know. Some of you will be listening to this in your car or on your pods. Yeah, your pods. You heard me. I'm sticking with it. I've gone real northern. Well, not real northern. Weird that, isn't it? We say northern, but in terms of the entire landmass, north is in north. Scotland's north, and I'm apparently not allowed to be part of any of it because I'm from the Midlands, and then I rejected the Midlands by moving away to another part of the world. What an interesting musing we live in. But it's interesting that the camera moved because, these things change. I can't keep this same camera set up every single time, can I? Because I have to go off and do things like meet Dave Zakin and discuss ceramics inside of his very nice apartment and marvel at the signs he has in his house, which I need to contact to remember about. There's a side note to the Dave Zakin interview, which if you haven't watched it, this is going to seem completely irrelevant. If you have watched it, it also seems completely irrelevant because we discussed this once the cameras are off. But Dave has these fluorescent signs in his house. They're kind of like neon. Fluorescent is not the right word. Neon signs in his house, and apparently they only cost like $20, and he gets them from a place in Chinatown. And now I really want to know where this place in Chinatown is, and I'm gonna have to go out and reach out and find out and figure out what that's all about. But the reason I pointed out that the camera had moved was a subtle nod to what we're going to discuss today. That is, I don't know. I had a line, like an intro line to run off with there, and you know what? It's just falling away. You're watching me figure this out in real time. You realize that like every week, right? That's what this is. There's no script to this. There's like maybe one or two post-it notes which say, hey, at some point you should make this point. And usually that point is just something which I've thought of whilst I was making the coffee on the walk from the kitchen to here. I don't make the coffee on the walk from the kitchen to here. That'd be interesting. I was about to say that would be bad. But mainly it would just be impossible because there's no water connection in the middle of the apartment. But what I'm saying is, you watch me put this together in real time. Each thought, each process is me skipping along one drum beat at a time, one bass line hit, as we converse. We're conversing. You may not realize it, right? You may not have gathered that through the 200 and something podcasts which have happened, most of them involving me, all of them involving me. I haven't had one which didn't involve me. But this is a conversation. We're having a conversation. Even the order that I put them up in, it's a conversation. There's no avoiding that. And it's me figuring out how I'm doing this. Every year I adjust something. I get strange comments saying that this is a failure of a show because I've done 200 and something episodes and not got thousands and thousands of subscribers. I honestly don't care. And it's because this is a work in progress. We're a constantly inconsistent work in progress. That's the whole key to being human and being alive and being interested in what you're doing. I do this because I enjoy it and because it's fun. But the point I'm getting at is the point which I'm casually grasping towards, if you will, is that most of what we have in society now has removed this aspect of work in progress. See, I did have a point. I had a point like right from the beginning. All of this is weirdly planned, just in my head. It just doesn't come out in a linear format. I'm sorry. Get used to it. But yeah, we as a society have grown to a weird point, I think, within our lives. I think most people would agree with that. I don't think anyone else would disagree with that and say, yeah, we're on track. If you do, hit me up. Let's talk. That we're on track as a society, culture, world, species. Let me know that we're on track, because I would love to have that conversation. But no, we constructed this as a society which really values the product, right? And most people will say that this is capitalism. Most people will come in and say yes, because this is product creates profit, and profit is what value society puts on things. If you haven't got profit, come talk to me. That's the view of things. But I'd say it's just also kind of human, right? Isn't it? To want the product, to want the item, right? Not much the item, but the outcome. You want the outcome, right? When you think of, like, let's say a film, right? You go to the cinema and you watch the film. Prior to the film, you could learn how everything's made. You could learn how things get to that point. But as human beings, on a level, we want the spectacle. We want the spectacle of something coming out of nowhere and just being like, we made this. Enjoy. And you may not enjoy it, but you may enjoy it. But either way, you will be more interested in the how it was made once you've seen the finished product. And this is what's interesting, I think, about a lot of the clickbait content online and a lot of the short videos you see which say, wait till the end. Just wait till the end. It's a 5-minute video, but wait till the end. And by the way, whenever I see that, I automatically click away, because I don't know, I'm self-destructive in manners I can't quite figure out just yet. But that's the thing. They're wanting the anticipation to pay off, right? And they want that anticipation because you want to see the finished product. You want to see the outcome. You don't care about the accident. You want to see the crash when it gets to the end of the video. So then you can track back and be like, oh, this makes so much sense, and that's really interesting. I wonder why they made that design choice. Well, they made that design choice because halfway down the line this happened. But halfway down the line when that was happening, you don't care about that, do you? Like, you might care if you're interested in that field. You might care if you're interested in that craft. I imagine, woodworking people watching woodworking videos will be interested no matter what part of the process. But to me, I'd love to see the finished armoire. Don't know why I chose armoire. The finished armoire at the end, and then track back. Go, oh, hey, there's an armoire. And then track back. Because, on some level, if I see the armoire and I can figure out how it's made, I'm less interested in how it's made. Right? And I think that lends itself to audiences in modern art, and why a lot of people are unimpressed by modern art. Because a lot of modern art could be created by anybody. Practically. Like a splatter painting can be created by anybody. Found art could be created by anybody. So they see that and then they go, well, I could make that. That's not that impressive. Practically. Conceptually, they probably couldn't. Wouldn't be their deal. Wouldn't be something they would have thought of. But now that they see it, they're like, yeah, well, I get it. But also I can make that. It doesn't take the skill that I would imagine is required to create art in the first place. Therefore, I can waft it away like a leaf in the wind. But whereas carpentry, construction, all these things, you see them and you're like, oh, hey, that's a thing. That's crazy. I'd be interested in watching a documentary about that. I'll sit for 20 minutes and figure out how the pie's made. Changing metaphors at a rapid pace here. So, when I see these videos online, I see kind of people chatting about how nobody cares about the process and nobody cares about this, that, and the other. The main one which gets me, and I imagine the reason I wrote this down in the first place was because the amount of Instagram reels I get fed, which is, show me something which takes longer than the audience expects it to, or something to that paraphrase in some capacity. It'll come to me later on and it'll annoy me that I wasn't able to quote it in the exact moment. No, that was it, because there are lots of sped up videos. You get a lot of sped up videos on Instagram as well, which is just like, time lapses. People love a time lapse. I'm guilty of it. I've thrown time lapses up because they're engaging. People are like, oh, where's this line going to go next? That's interesting. This is coming out of nowhere. Oh my god, the suddenly colour and magic, and they want the final product. They're interested in it. But then it started a trend. It started a counter trend of something which is like, show me something which is in real time. I don't know why it sounds like an elf when I'm trying to do this robotic American accent, by the way, but I'm sticking with it. Show me something. It sounds kind of like Bo Burnham, but really high voice. Just like a really high voice. I'm sorry, Bo Burnham. I'm sorry. Come on the podcast. Let's chat about it. Anyway, so we look at this and we look at this as society, and then artists have looked at this and goes, nobody appreciates the process anymore. Nobody appreciates the amount of time and everything which goes into it. And there's that other song, there's a lyrical song which is like, it costs this much because it takes me fucking ages. That mentality, and on one level, I completely appreciate that mentality, by the way. Right? It does take hours to produce something. It takes often weeks to produce something. It can take years to produce a final product in some capacity. In some cases, I'm currently working on a project which has taken me a couple of years because I do it in between all the other things which I do within my life. And sometimes the price which you put on the end of it can be a bit stinging to yourself, because people will look at it and say, well, that's too expensive. It costs that much. Why would it cost that much? Because they haven't seen it. They haven't seen the hours and hours and hours which you've put into that project. They haven't seen the physical time you put into an object, the cost of producing it, anything like that. Currently, as of right now, I'm working on hosting an event which is free. That event wasn't free to make. It wasn't free to host. It wasn't free to put on, to make advertising materials from. But the end result will come, and no doubt someone will complain about it. I'm expecting that. I'm prepared for that because I'm used to that mentality. You can give something away for free and people will still question its worth, which is insane, right? It seems insane. And I got me thinking about how we're like, to say we're in a capitalist society and to say we're in a product-orientated society and an outcome-orientated society. I'm going to stop using product because I think outcome is a better word. We're an outcome-orientated society. To say we are living within that, it's interesting that when we are children, we are very much taught that showing you're working is the key to everything. He says with a profound hand gesture when it wasn't that profound. It was staring us all right in the face. And you all know what I'm talking about, right? You take a lesson, you do mathematics or whatever you want to call it, math as they call it, or you do art, or you do English. They expect you to write an essay about it. How did you get to this outcome? How did you come to this conclusion? How did you get to this answer? And especially in maths. Maths is the one which I think of most of, and chemistry as well. Anything which involves equations and elements and all those kinds of things, they want the formula. They want to know that you didn't just pop a number in there and guess it. Mainly because they want to know that you understand the material you're given. I understand why they ask you to do this, by the way. Don't hit me up in the DMs. I understand why children are asked to show their working. But even art's even exactly the same in school. And think of all the coursework you did, right? Even if you didn't take art through to a higher level, think of all the coursework you did. How many sketchbooks? How many books and sketches and drawings of things which you didn't really have a relation to the project, but you were told you needed more pages in the sketchbook? How many extra paragraphs did you write to explain your working, explain how you got to this methodology? And then you get to the very end, and you get marked on your final piece. Cheers. Oh, you don't. You get marked on both. But in the outside world, in the world behind the structure, behind the walls, behind all the steel fences, currently describing my old school, behind all of that, in the outer world, nobody cares. Nobody cares about the process. Nobody cares about the thinking time, the orientation time, the 1,000 hours you put in to become proficient in the skill which you're doing. Yet the earliest lesson we're given when we're in school is that matters, that counts. Thinking time counts, thought time counts. Do you know the final exam for photography and art, or at least when I was in school, it's like an all-day exam. It's like a 4-hour exam for a photograph, for a singular photograph, for a singular painting, a singular drawing. You're expected to sit there and create it on the day. And a lot of people didn't realize that, right? A lot of people thought that was insane. And I think that's kind of insane to do that. It's kind of insane to have that as an exam. And it's because those ideas don't line up. Conceptually those ideas don't line up. They line up with the structure of putting on an exam and the structure of having a system in order to grade someone on an artistic process. But when you transfer that into reality, it just doesn't make any sense. It's not a way of actually doing things. And this comes into the methodology which is all structured within the whole AI realm, and why why AI is going to be so damaging to the world around us and the processes around us is because major corporations don't care about the process. They don't care about the thinking time because they're profit orientated. They're profit orientated. They're not outcome orientated. They're just there to say, hey, we need a picture of a cat. Cool. How do I get that picture of a cat? Doesn't matter. As long as we get the picture of the cat, they're done, sorted, ship it, put it on a t-shirt and a water bottle and sell it to the kids. That's their interest. So why would they rely on artists to do that? Why would they rely on anybody to do that when they could do it themselves? And it's because there's no concept into it either. It's like, oh, well, we want a picture of a cat. Therefore, picture of a cat. Doesn't matter if that cat has a sense of ennui. Doesn't matter if the weight of the world is crushing that cat. Doesn't matter if that cat kind of has a human face. Looking at you, medievalists. Just go look at a cat. I'm just saying. You can draw a horse. Why can't you draw a cat? It's a little weird. No one pays for thinking time. That's the reality of it. If we were to cut these podcasts down, if I was to trim them just to the final notes, to the final 5 minutes where I actually make some sort of point, that's what you're interested in. That's what most people are interested in. That's where you want to come along for the journey if you're interested in the journey and the idea that I might come to an outcome. But in the day-to-day society, it doesn't really matter. I thought about this the other day when I was getting coffee. It's interesting. Coffee's interesting as a process, and if we compare it to this example, right? With food, we're often not shown the process for food. We're not shown the process of food because industrialization processes for food make us feel a little bit queasy at times. Having worked in kitchens, it should. But even in like a nice restaurant, or even just in a simple bakery or anything like that, we're not shown that process. We're not shown the intricacies, the time management, the weighing, the measuring, the physical labor which goes into creating bread. We're not shown any of that because at the end of it, what we actually want is the convenience of going into a store and purchasing a nice loaf of bread. We then eat that bread and then we think to ourselves, wow, this must have been through a great process. I'd love to know a little bit more about that process. And we put more research into it. The same with coffee. I go to a coffee shop. What do I want? I want coffee. I'm there for an idea. I'm there for an outcome. I'm there for something to quench my thirst and give me the caffeine which I desire. Do I care how you make it? No, I couldn't. You could make it from instant granules for all I care. You can make it from a pour over. You can make it from an espresso machine. Doesn't really matter to me at that instance of time. It's only once I've had it and I go, this is really nice. This is really good. What kind of process did this go through to get to that? It's very rare I watch the person make my coffee. One, because I feel like it makes the person making my coffee incredibly uncomfortable, and that's kind of a weird to do. I tend to just stare off into space, disassociate, or look at the people around me and make them feel uncomfortable because they're all watching me order coffee. They're watching my process, and I don't want to be watched during my process. I want to be left alone to get my coffee. That's all I'm saying. But they care about the outcome. They care that if I'm going to mess up, if I'm going to drop my coffee, if I'm going to have a problem with the barista, they care about the outcome. So they're watching the process for signs of the outcome. Society's a little weird like that. Anyway, I skipped my point completely. Anywho, what I'm saying is that's the society, right? That's human nature. The nature of us wanting answers. We always want answers to things. It's why when you hear something, your curiosity peaks. It's why on a primal level, you hear something and your brain skips to the end and it goes, oh, hey, that could be a predator. We should probably leave right now. You know, that's how it goes. Oh, that's a pleasant noise. Right now, when I wake up in the morning and I wander through to the kitchen, there is the sound of a cat. And now I don't know cat noises, but it sounds like the cat's in trouble. It mews for quite a while. But I don't know if that's because it's mewing to be let in, or mewing because it's injured, or mewing because it just wants to piss people off. But that's the noise I hear most mornings. But my ears peek up to it, and they're like, oh, hey, I want to know the answer. I want to know the outcome. I want to know the outcome of this situation. I don't really care about the process, don't really care about what the cat does on its day-to-day, don't care if it's got stocks and bonds, don't really care if its name is Maurice. But I named it Maurice, and there's not much I can really do about that now. Just happens to be a cat called Maurice. But that's the outcome. And I don't care about where the cat came from. Which is a conflict. Because recently I said, I care about all these things. I care about those tragic stories. I care about those intonations. But that's because we're discussing something else. We're discussing items of inclination. We're discussing intent. We're discussing, outcomes which may come later on. But from the point of interest of just, oh, hey, what's going on today? I just want the outcome. Society wants the outcome. Did I have a point to this? I guess I had a point to this. I guess it's easy to be disheartened. That's it. That's the end point. No, it's easy to be disheartened with the process and media and creation and anything, really. Not just fine art or regular art. Fine art or regular art. Those are the two types of art in this world. No. It's just when you are living in a system where the outcome is the valuable part. And that's outside of capitalism, that's just in general. When you're living in that system and you feel like you're just a cog and you feel like you're underappreciated and you feel like the process you're going through is completely hidden in the dark, it's important to remember that that is the case for all things within the world. It's not just relating to your process. It relates to all things, all situations. And if you have an interest in exposing your process to the world, it's important to do that from a point of view of, well, if I want people to be interested in this, then it needs to have some value to them to begin with. Personally, I have no interest in you knowing my process. I have no interest in you particularly being involved in that process. I just want to put stuff out into the world which I enjoy and I think other people would enjoy. So I do that. I fling stuff into the world at any point in time in order just to land it. And I'm extremely comfortable with that. The process part to me is kind of messy. The process part to me is kind of my thing. It's personal. It's the journey I'm going on. It's not necessary for the audience to understand that. What's necessary for the audience to understand is to get the end product, the end outcome, and interpret their own story. And I think that's half the battle as well. Is inspiring the curiosity to know the story rather than exposing too much, rather than exposing too much of the process myself and creating disinterest by accident. Maybe that's why I hide things. Maybe that's why I'm constantly not showing my work in progress. I never liked that part of the test where I had to explain what I was doing. I don't like explaining what I'm doing. I think that's pretty evident. I just like to do things. And I'm going to continue. And I hope you continue to. But maybe this helps, maybe it doesn't. All you really need to remember is you can show you're working all you want. You can explain your process all you want. But people don't pay for the process. People pay for the outcome. And then they'll pay for your process afterwards. I don't know if that's disheartening or if it's inspiring. But it is what it is. And something for you guys to remember. I'll talk to you guys later.